Rising from this stretch of Saudi Arabia's Red Sea coast is a structure designed to be at its planned height of more than 1,000 meters, and this tower will stand over 170 meters taller than any building on Earth today.
Even now, more than a decade after construction first began, this tower is still actively rising and has not yet reached even 200 end. Before a single floor could rise, engineers first had to solve one of the most difficult foundation challenges in skyscraper.
Behind me stands a tower designed to reach over 1,000 meters into the sky. I'm going to show exactly how engineers are attempting to build the tallest structure ever constructed.
This project was conceived as the centerpiece of an entirely new economic district planned along Saudi Arabia's coastline.
Choosing this specific site required years of geological study, given how close it sat to the shifting coastal water table. Printing. Because the coastal soil here was too soft and unstable to support a tower this heavy near the surface, piles had to be driven. Hundreds of these deep piles would eventually be needed just to support the tower's foundation before a single floor could rise above ground.
Each individual pile had to be filled with extraordinary care, since any weakness of this deep underground would be almost impossible.
This single foundation slab needed to be thick and strong enough to distribute the weight of an entire kilometer-tall tower evenly across all of its supporting piles.
Everything above this point depends entirely on the strength and precision of this central core, supporting the full weight of the tower's more than 1,000 meters. This self-climbing system would allow the tower's core to rise continuously without needing to be rebuilt from scratch at every single floor. Pumping concrete this high would eventually become one of the greatest engineering challenges of the entire project, but here at ground level, the process still.
This climbing process would repeat itself hundreds of times over the coming years, each cycle adding another layer of height to the tower.
This unique triple-lobed shape was specifically engineered to reduce wind forces acting on the building as it climbed to extreme heights. Certain floors required a combination of reinforced concrete and structural steel working together to handle the specific loads found at that particular height. The cranes building this tower needed to be extended upward constantly, just to keep working at the leading edge of construction. Pumping concrete to such extreme heights required specialized high-pressure equipment capable of pushing material hundreds of meters straight up without losing its workability.
Although still early in the project, the tower had already become the tallest structure in the entire city by a wide margin.
Simply moving workers and materials up and down a building this tall required entirely dedicated high-speed hoist systems separate from any future passenger elevators. Working safely at heights like this required constant discipline, since even routine tasks became far more dangerous at the higher construction climbed. A project of this scale and height required constant safety training and daily briefings to protect the thousands of workers involved in its construction. This steady rhythm of rebar placement, followed by concrete pouring, followed by formwork climbing, would repeat continuously for years. The tower's exterior would eventually be covered entirely in glass, requiring an enormous number of custom fabricated panels manufactured specifically for this project. Installing glass on a building this tall required custom engineered systems capable of handling extreme wind loads at height. As more glass was installed, the tower's true final appearance finally began to take visible shape, rather than remaining just.
At this point in construction, the tower had already surpassed the height of nearly every skyscraper in the Middle East.
Every single batch of concrete used at this extreme height had to pass strict quality testing, given how critical structural integrity became. This project experienced a significant real-world pause partway through construction before work eventually resumed with renewed momentum in more recent years. When construction resumed, engineers first needed to thoroughly inspect everything built previously before safely continuing the climb toward greater heights. Resuming a paused megaproject required not just restarting the physical work, but also rebuilding a specialized workforce capable of this scale.
Engineers described this renewed phase of construction as moving at a genuinely rapid pace compared to the project's earlier years. That surpassing the tower's previous record height represented a genuinely significant milestone in the project's long and difficult history.
Engineers described this period as advancing at a genuinely blistering pace compared to typical skyscraper construction timelines anywhere else in the world. Reaching this floor placed the tower firmly among the very tallest structures ever built anywhere in the world, even while construction continued well beyond this point.
Reaching this height required solving problems that few construction teams anywhere in the world had ever faced. From pumping concrete this high,
Engineers constantly monitored wind conditions at height, since certain construction activities had to pause entirely during periods of especially strong wind.
Even as the tower's core continued climbing toward the sky, entirely separate crews worked simultaneously fitting out the lower completed floors with essential building systems. This tower would eventually require dozens of elevators, including double-decker units. Just to move, installing an elevator system capable of serving a building this tall required custom-engineered equipment found in only a handful of buildings anywhere in the world.
At this stage, the tower had climbed high enough that weather conditions at the top could genuinely differ from the street level far below.
This cantilevered terrace would eventually offer the highest observation deck of its kind anywhere on Earth, once completed. This projecting structure required entirely custom-engineered steelwork capable of safely supporting visitors while extending outward at such an extreme height.
Reaching this stage of construction meant the tower had already surpassed the halfway point toward its final planned height of more than 1,000 meters.
As the tower climbed higher, engineers had to continuously upgrade their equipment. Pumping concrete becomes exponentially more.
Coordinating materials, equipment, and thousands of workers across a project this vast required a logistics operation as complex as the engineering itself.
Many components used in this tower's construction had to be custom manufactured specifically for this single project, rather than sourced from standard building supplies. Facade installation had to continue in parallel with the rising core. Some floors received their final glass exterior.
At this point in construction, the tower had already become one of the tallest structures ever built by human beings. Even while
engineers continuously monitored how much the tower moved in the wind, even a structure this massive was expected to sway slightly at such extreme heights. A tower this tall required multiple mechanical floors positioned at intervals throughout its height, each one supporting a specific. Every floor added at this height represented a genuine engineering achievement, given how few structures on Earth had ever reached this elevation during active construction. Conditions at the top of an active construction site this tall could change rapidly, requiring constant monitoring to keep workers safe. By this stage in construction, the site's cranes had already been extended upward dozens of times over the course of the project. Surpassing 100 floors placed this tower among an extremely small group of structures ever built to this scale. While the core continued climbing toward its final height, an entirely separate army of workers steadily transformed the completed floors below into finished, usable space. From a distance, the tower's lower sections began to resemble its final appearance, even as the very top continued rising in raw, unfinished. Installing the first working elevators represented an important milestone, since it meant the building's completed lower sections were finally becoming genuinely functional. Engineers now openly discussed the tower's remaining construction in terms of years rather than decades, a significant shift from the project's earlier and more uncertain timeline. This project attracted regular attention from officials and engineers around the world, eager to understand exactly how this ongoing monitoring effort would continue not just through the remainder of construction, but for the entire operational life of the building once complete. This narrow spire section would eventually carry the tower to its full and final height, once construction reached that stage.
Even though the tower is still under construction today, its lower floors already offer views unlike almost anything else in the region.
The tower now stood taller than the vast majority of skyscrapers ever completed anywhere in the world, despite still being an active unfinished construction site.
Facade work at this height required not just technical precision, but genuine physical endurance, given the harsh conditions found so far above the ground. The sheer scale of interior work required across more than 160 planned floors meant fit-out crews would continue. Maintaining consistent quality across so many floors, built over such a long timeline, required rigorous and repeated inspection at every single stage.
Reaching this stage meant the tower was now closing in on becoming not just the tallest building in Saudi Arabia, but
this single view captured the true nature of a project this vast, with completely different phases of construction happening at once across different parts of the same building. Even the very first floors of this tower represented an enormous undertaking on their own, quite apart from everything still happening far above at the active construction level. Even years after those original piles were first driven into the ground, engineers continued verifying the foundation's performance as more and more weight was added above.
Construction here continues today, floor by floor, toward a final height that will make this the tallest building human beings have ever created.
Engineers now openly anticipated reaching the structural topping out point within a defined and increasingly near-term timeline. While this section brought the tower closer to its planned height, the final milestone still remained ahead at the time of this documentary.
This single structure now represented one of the most ambitious and complex construction efforts ever undertaken anywhere in the world.
Even unfinished, this tower already ranked among the tallest structures ever built by human civilization. Even after dark, work continued on select tasks across the site, the tower's lights standing as a visible reminder of the scale of ambitions still.
Engineers projected the tower would reach full completion and eventual opening within the coming years, a timeline that continued to be refined as construction progressed.
Everything shown throughout this documentary, from the very first deep foundation pile to the tower's current extraordinary height.
Select portions of the tower's base were already becoming functional, even while construction continued far above.
This tower already represented an extraordinary achievement even before its final completion, standing proof of what
this tower now stood as one of the most significant construction achievements attempted anywhere in modern history.
This single structure, still under construction today, already dominated the skyline of an entire coastal city.
Saudi Arabia had not simply set out to build a tall building. Engineers here were attempting to solve problems that had never been solved at this exact scale before.
Acid. Behind every floor of this tower were thousands of workers, engineers, and specialists who dedicated years of their careers. This tower, though still incomplete, had already fundamentally changed what people believed was possible in modern construction.
From a single deep foundation pile to a structure now approaching 1 kilometer in height, the emotional weight of everything shown is immense.
This tower is not finished yet. It continues rising today, floor by floor, toward a height of more than 1,000 meters.
This video is created for education and informational purposes using advanced AI tools and human creativity. All concepts, scripting, and storytelling are independently developed to ensure originality. Visuals and animations are generated or enhanced using AI technologies such as VO3, Meta AI, and Grok AI, while final editing and post-production and completed using CapCut and other professional editing tools. No external created content has been copied or reused. Any semblance to real-world environments, factories, or processes is purely coincidental. All scenes shown in this video are digitally created and do not represent real footage. This content is produced with transparency and follows YouTube monetization guidelines.